Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited for today's video because I'm going to be talking to you about a drugstore makeup starter kit that I came up with. So essentially, while I was flying home, I was thinking about video ideas and I thought to myself that it would be really fun to do a video about like a drugstore makeup starter kit. So if you had no makeup at all and you wanted just like a starter kit, so you had like one of every product that you needed, but you only wanted to purchase it from the drugstore, these are the recommendations that I have for you. So I compiled a list. I tried to come up with a recommendation for like just about every makeup category that I could. For the most part, I tailored my starter kit to someone with dry skin just because I personally have dry skin, but I do have a couple of different recommendations for foundations specifically in case you prefer like a more mattifying foundation or like a glowier foundation. But other than that, I feel like for the most part, other than like primer, people with oily skin and dry skin use the same products. Maybe I'm just like really off base there, but anyway, if you guys are interested in seeing my recommendations for a makeup drugstore starter kit, then stay tuned. But first, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I hope you'll consider doing so before you go. I post videos every single Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And without further ado, let's get into the video. It is finally warming up here in Minnesota. I think it's 80 degrees today. So as soon as I finish this, I'm gonna go for a walk. Well, I'm gonna go get coffee, iced coffee, and then I'm gonna go for a walk around my neighborhood. But I finally like feel like I can warrant wearing a tank top in my videos with like out freezing my butt off while filming. Although my fake tan is like wearing off and I need to fake tan again. But I need to like rub everything off. And I'm off on a tangent for no reason. Anyway, you guys, so we're gonna be talking about my makeup drugstore starter kit. If you were to buy everything, it would cost you less than $100, which is super exciting. You may have to choose between like a pressed powder and a powder, otherwise that might put you over 100, but everything I mentioned, if you total it all up, under 100 bucks. I will link everything down below in case you guys are interested in any of the products that I mentioned, but obviously you could also just Google the products and search for it yourself. I'm gonna link as much as I can to Target because I find that I find better deals at Target. Plus, if you have the Target Red Card, then you save 5% on top of everything else. But I do find that the prices, typically for me at least when I look, prices are lower at Target than like Ulta. Also, please don't be upset, but there are a couple of products that are like drugstore prices, but not necessarily found at the drugstore. We'll get into those when we get to them. So, starting with primer, I actually do not have the primer that I'm going to mention in front of me or with me. This is a primer that I've already used up in the past, and I didn't want to go purchase an item just for the sole purpose of this video because I am currently on a no-buy, and I'm trying to work through a bunch of primers right now. But I have used this primer before, and if I were to purchase a primer from the drugstore, this would be my first choice. It is the NYX Studio Perfect Photo Loving Primer, and I really did like this primer. I felt like it did a nice job of smoothing out my skin. What I will say is my makeup preferences have somewhat changed since using that primer, and for me personally, I probably would want like a little bit more of a hydrating primer, but this is probably one of the better primers that I found at the drugstore. Actually, probably the best primer I found at the drugstore. Primers at the drugstore are like one area where I feel like I just don't love everything that I try, but this is one that I definitely would use if I purchase it again. Right now I'm just trying to really curate my primer collection and lower my makeup inventory numbers, but this is a good recommendation from the drugstore. It does cost, I think it's $13.99 at Ulta, but I saw it at Target for $8.39, so under $10, which I love. I do believe this is a silicone based primer, so if you do not like silicone based primers, my next option that I would recommend would be the Flower Beauty primer. Any one of the Flower Beauty primers. I personally have only tried the illuminating one. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys and say I've tried all three, but I've heard good things about the primers. I like the illuminating one. It's not my favorite illuminating primer, so I wouldn't repurchase it. I would be interested in trying the hydrating primer from Flower Beauty, but my number one recommendation from the drugstore for a primer would be the NYX the NYX Studio Perfect Photo Loving Primer. Okay, so for foundation, I actually feel like the drugstore kind of knocks it out of the park for foundations. I have tons of favorite foundations from the drugstore. I did a video ranking my entire foundation collection, so if you guys are interested in seeing that video, I'll link that in the cards because I'll talk about all of the drugstore foundations in my collection and what I think of them in that video. But if you are looking for a drugstore foundation and you have dry skin and you like a natural finish foundation, I would recommend the CoverGirl Vitalist Healthy Elixir foundation. I can't find this one at Target, but I believe this is $11.99 at Ulta, and I love this foundation. I use this all of the time. This one specifically is currently going in a project pan, and I also have gone through 2 other bottles in the past, and I have a backup of this, so I love this foundation. I think it's beautiful. It has SPF 20, so sometimes I like to get away with this as my SPF in the summer, even though shame on me, I should be using both. But I feel like it does a nice job of not, like, if I'm going to be out in the blazing sun, it's not going to completely protect me, but if I'm just like wandering around, driving around, this does offer some SPF protection, and it gives a nice, beautiful, natural finish to the skin. I would say this is about a medium coverage, which is kind of like my sweet spot. If you like more of a full coverage foundation, I don't know that I can really help you just because I don't try a ton of full coverage foundations because that's not my preference, but I do think this is a really good option from the drugstore. If you like a dewier looking foundation, then I would recommend the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Glow foundation. This is like, these two, I can't remember which one I ranked above the other because honestly these are pretty much like tied in my opinion. I love both of these foundations so much, but the Pro Glow, I've gone through probably 4 or 5, maybe even 6 of these. I love this foundation. It just gives such a beautiful, like, natural glowy looking finish to the skin that I absolutely love. It's, I think this actually might be $12.99, but I think I may have seen it for $8.39 at Target too, so I think it's a great value. I get so much use out of this. I always feel confident when I wear this foundation. I can wear this to work, and even though it might not be the absolute longest wearing foundation in my collection, I know it wears away like kind of gracefully, so it's not going to look super patchy or super weird as it wears away. So I'm confident wearing this to work. I know that this isn't going to do me wrong, and I absolutely love this foundation. I do not think you can go wrong. And then if you have more oily skin or you prefer a more mattifying finish, I'm going to recommend to you the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte. And I actually personally love this foundation as well. I tried it just to like see what this would be like compared to the Pro Glow, and I fell in love with this. I was shocked. I seriously was shocked. I did not think I was gonna like this because I do not like a matte finish foundation. But for me, this is more of like a velvet matte or like a satin matte finish. It doesn't make me look super flat. And I feel like this one lasts even longer than the Pro Glow foundation because it has like those mattifying properties to it. So I personally also really, really love this. Sometimes I'll mix this one with the Pro Glow if I want more of a natural leaning dewy finish, but I love the Pro Matte foundation as well. Don't think you can go wrong. So if you're looking for a good foundation to start with, this is definitely high on my recommendations list. Okay, next up for concealer. This is one that I re-fell in love with recently, but I am loving it, and I would highly recommend. This is $3.99, so like you truly cannot go wrong for like a starter kit. This is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Concealer, and I feel like this gives a nice medium coverage to the skin, and it doesn't look cakey underneath the skin. I was gonna say it doesn't crease too bad underneath the skin. Every concealer, I feel like, in my opinion, is gonna crease no matter what unless you set it, but this one doesn't crease too badly, and I really, really like this. I feel like it's pretty hydrating underneath my eyes. Sometimes I find that some concealers can look super dry underneath my eyes, but I don't get that with this, so this is definitely my drugstore recommendation for concealer. Next up for powder, I'm not a huge powder girl. I've been getting more into powders lately, but I don't have a huge powder collection, so I have a pressed and a loose powder to recommend to you guys. For pressed, I would recommend the CoverGirl Vitalist Healthy Powder. This retails for $11.99. It's a really super finely milled powder, and it's really, really beautiful. You can use this to set all over the face. You can use this to set underneath the eyes. And what I love about this one is it doesn't come in just like 1 or 2 shades. I believe this comes in like at least 6 shades, so you can match this to your foundation. You could probably even use this as a powder foundation. In fact, that might be actually what this is. I'm truly not sure, but I like to use this to set my entire face at times, and I don't feel like it makes me look too dry. I don't feel like it looks cakey or heavy on the skin, and I really like this powder. For my loose powder, this is one that you cannot get at the drugstore, but it comes kind of at a drugstore price, especially considering how much you get. This is the original RCMA No Translucent Powder. This has been around for a long time, and a lot of people recommend this, but this truly is a really, really nice powder, super finely milled. I like this one better than the Laura Mercier like under eye brightening or even like the regular Laura Mercier, because I find the Laura Mercier is too heavy, looks too cakey and dry underneath my eyes. I can get that like scaly or crepey look, but I don't get that with this. So really love that about this powder. This retails for $12. You get so much product in this, 3 ounces of product, so this is gonna last you a really long time. Even if you like to go super heavy with your powder, you're gonna use this to bake or what have you, this is gonna last you a long time. And I would definitely recommend, if you're starting out, this would be a great loose powder to start with. Okay, next up for bronzer, this is a total basic bitch answer, but I feel like this is truly the best of the best at the drugstore. Normally I feel like this retails for $14.99, but I saw it for $8.39 at Target. It's the Mirror Butter Bronzer. They've recently released more shades, so you should have a better time like matching your shade, which is super exciting. This is such a good bronzer formula, you guys. I recently repressed mine and hit pan again. When I finish this, I will definitely be repurchasing this. This is always a bronzer I want to have in my collection. For me personally, I do love the scent of this. It smells like coconuts. It smells like summer. I love this bronzer. Seriously, if you guys are looking for your first bronzer or a bronzer to start out with, you truly cannot go wrong with the Mirror Butter Bronzer. All right, you guys, and then for blush, this is one of my favorite blush formulas. This is the Flower Pots, the Flower Beauty Flower Pots blush. I have 2 shades. I have this one right here, which is in the shade Warm Hibiscus, which truly is like a dupe for the NARS Orgasm. Of course, mine isn't swatching very well. Go figure. I wore this all the time last year. I was so blown away by this. I bought this kind of on a whim, and I wore this all of the time last summer. And normally I like to switch my blushes up quite a bit, but I always wanted to reach for this. So that's how I knew I really liked it. So naturally I had to pick up a shade for the winter time, and I picked up the shade Sweet Pea. I do believe they have at least one other shade, which is a coral shade that I want to pick up too, but again, low buy, like I don't need any more blush right now. But you really cannot go wrong with this blush formula, guys. It's super soft and buttery, super easy to work with, not too pigmented, so you can kind of build it up, but also pigmented enough that you don't have to like sit there and like dig into your blush to get it onto your face. So just a really awesome formula. $9.99 for these, so a little bit more expensive for a drugstore blush, but definitely well worth the investment. Okay, and then for highlight, I have 2 different highlight formulas to recommend. One if you prefer a more subtle highlight, and one if you're looking for a more glowy wham bam highlight. So if you're looking for a super intense highlight, I would recommend the Wet n Wild Mega Glow highlighting powders. I know a lot of people rave about these, but for a good reason. I have 2 of them here. I have this one right here, which I believe is in the shade Precious Petals, which is the more golden of the 2, and then this one is my personal favorite. This is in the shade Blossom Glow, which is a little bit more pink tone, which I just typically prefer for a highlight for my skin tone. Let me just swatch this one for you. I hope that you can see it, but it's just a beautiful pink toned highlight, and I absolutely love it. These retail for $4.99, and it's just seriously, even if you have like a large makeup collection, it is worth investing in this highlight formula, especially if you like highlights. I really do love them. And then if you like a more subtle highlight, I would recommend the Essence Pure Nude. Again, lots of people talk about this, although I haven't heard as many people talking about this lately. I don't know if you'll be able to see it swatched there. But this is just a beautiful, like true champagne sort of highlight, but it does lean on the subtle side. So you can build this one up, but it's not going to give you a super intense glow like the Wet n Wild ones will. I believe this retails for $4.99. It's either $2.99 or $4.99, but I'm gonna err on the side of caution and say $4.99. I believe it's $4.99. Still well worth the investment. This is one that I will not declutter because I do like to have this on days that I'm looking for a more subtle highlight to wear to work. I think it is absolutely beautiful and would definitely recommend either of these to someone looking to start out in makeup. Okay, then the other one that I'm sort of cheating on for the drugstore is I'm gonna recommend to a ColourPop palette, and honestly, I get that ColourPop's like a hair over drugstore, but truly you get really great quality with the ColourPop eyeshadows. So if you can get your hands on them, I would highly recommend. You can even get them at Ulta now, so it kind of like is drugstore. But I'm going to recommend the Dream Street palette with Kathleen Lights. I just love this palette. It is a warm tone palette, which I feel like still is like kind of all the rage, even though I know that cool tones are becoming like more trendy. It's such a beautiful palette. You get like your neutral transitions, you get a nice dark brown so you can build up and make a beautiful smoky eye, but then you get like these beautiful like bronzy, rose gold shades, and I am obsessed with this like blue green shade. Like I would truly buy this palette just for the shade. I I don't know if I like missed this when I first started using this palette this summer, but I recently reached into this and I cannot stop wanting to use the shade now. So I love this palette. It retails for $18. I truly do think it's worth it. And I don't know, I'm kind of an eyeshadow snob. Like I would just much rather pay higher price for my eyeshadow and then buy like drugstore foundation, even though I also like high-end foundations. But eyeshadow is something that I do personally like to invest in. If you don't want to spend over $10 for eyeshadow, I totally understand. I do think that the Wet n Wild mini eyeshadow palettes are probably your next best option. I think these are either $4 or $5.99. My favorite would probably be the Comfort Zone. I don't particularly love the Not a Basic Peach palette. I just think it's kind of boring, as well as the Nude Awakening palette I think is kind of boring. They do have the Rosé in the Air, which is the dupe for the Modern Renaissance, and I know they just recently released a couple more. So again, if you don't want to pay over $10, I would recommend these, but if you can invest just a little bit more, I would highly recommend checking out the Dream Street palette by ColourPop, or any ColourPop palette that speaks to your color taste. So definitely recommend either of these. All right, and then for setting spray and mascara, these two I also don't have with me because again, my mascara collection is literally out of control. Although I essentially refused to spend full price on a mascara. I mean, I do get sent stuff like in my BoxyCharm, like full size nicer mascaras, and there are some that if I eventually worked through my mascara collection, I would maybe consider paying a higher price tag for, but very rare is the occasion. And I also like to cocktail my mascara, so I typically am using like a minimum of 3 different mascaras at a time. But my favorite drugstore mascaras that I would start out with if you are just looking for a nice drugstore mascara would be the Essence Lash Princess mascara. They have a false effect one, which is my favorite. It comes in a pink tube, I think. That might be the volume one. Volume pink tube is my favorite. The false effect comes in the green tube, which everyone else seems to love and rave about. I still like that one. I just prefer the volume. And then there's also a purple tube. I forget what that one is for. I would highly recommend either the pink or the green. I've tried and I know I like. I also like the Lash Paradise by L'Oreal. I also really like, in a green tube, the CoverGirl Clump Crusher. However, that is one that I use as like my first coat of mascara to like separate my lashes and almost like act as like a lash primer. So if you're looking for just like one mascara that you can go in, wham bam, and be done with, I would recommend the Essence. $4.99 can't beat the price. It truly is such a good mascara for the price. And then for setting spray, I would highly recommend the Catrice Dewy Set Setting Spray. It retails for $7.99. I don't currently have that in my collection, but once I work through some of my setting sprays, that is one that I would like to have in my curated setting spray collection. This is like the year where I'm trying to learn about like what my true favorites are, so my collection can be super curated to only my favorites and then a couple of products I'm testing out in like each category, and not have like an abundance of everything. And the Catrice Dewy Set Setting Spray I absolutely love. If you have oily skin, you probably won't like that. So probably, well, this is kind of drugstore, kind of not. I think if you have oily skin, you would like the Morphe setting spray, the one in the aerosol can. You'd like this if you have dry skin too. I like that setting spray, and that's probably one that I would have in my curated setting spray collection. It just isn't like, I like to use that between steps. So like if I go in and with my foundation and then I powder my face, then I like to go in with the Morphe. But I don't like to finish my makeup and set my makeup with the Morphe Continuous Mist Setting Spray. I don't know why. I just prefer other sprays to actually like set everything and use it as like the last step. But that's another good one that I would recommend. It's cool that it has like the aerosol can, so you get like a really fine mist with it, but it's just not my absolute favorite. I really do like the Catrice one if you like a like dewy sort of glow to the skin. Not too dewy. Not too dewy. But after that, you guys, that is going to conclude this video. Those are all of my recommendations for a drugstore makeup starter kit. You guys will have to leave me your recommendations down below, or let me know what you would recommend to someone who's just starting out, or who just, you know, wants to buy some makeup at the drugstore and not spend too much. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments and chat about that. But other than that, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, don't forget to do so before you go, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye.